the sort of thing that I was looking for is not so much, something directly to council itself, but rather, in the programs that they are developing that are for enterprises right across the country, that Auckland gets a fair share of that. And that if we were looking for something, if this was seen over the next couple of weeks under level 2 of still having a dramatically bad effect, that there'd be maybe more shovel-ready projects that could be applied in the city, because each one of those investments produces stuff that's assets that are valuable for generations in Auckland, but in the immediate sense, it generates employment opportunities and it stimulates the economy. So
did you give the Prime Minister a list of the ones that you would like to be considered?
They've got a list of 73 that we put through originally, which goes way back to Easter. I remember it was Easter because we spent our whole Easter putting it together. We did that thoroughly, and they were deemed to meet the government criteria, and then we got a share of that. Not as big a share as I would have liked, but I understand that there are needs in other parts of the country as well. And
have you got a commitment to get anything more though? So you would like it to be shovel-ready infrastructure. So is there any commitment?
There is nothing signed in black and white to say you will get this. What I've said to the government is that I intend to keep them up to date with the pressures that are occurring in our local area, because we have had a higher level of lockdown over the last 2.5 weeks, and we still have some restrictions that aren't faced by the rest of the country. So through New Zealand Tourism, it would be great to have support to promote, a lot of Aucklanders going down to Queenstown. We'd like to see people from around the country also come up to Auckland. Now, that's pretty hard under level 3. In fact, it was impossible, and it's still pretty hard under level 2.5. So there are other things that the government could do in that sphere that would help some of the industries that have been hardest hit: retail, accommodation, hospitality. Those are the areas that have suffered most particularly, because we've had a higher level of lockdown. And why do we have a higher level of lockdown? Because we're the gateway city, so of course, where are we going to get community transmission? In the city, where we still have an open door to, not an open door, but a partly open door to the rest of the world through returning New Zealanders.
So are you suggesting that the government mount a campaign that encourages people to come to Auckland to spend their weekend or a few days away?
Oh, look, they've got a campaign now for people, the people that would normally be spending $7, $8, $9 billion a year in overseas travel. Getting those people to spend within New Zealand is great. We think it's good that Aucklanders are able to go down and support places like Rotorua and Queenstown. Equally, we think it'd be good if other parts of the country would come up and support Auckland, which has about 29% of the total number of workers in the tourist industry in our city. That's often overlooked. We're not Rotorua, we're not Queenstown, but we did have a big reliance on the tourist industry. So, working through ATEED with New Zealand Tourism to get that sort of promotion and marketing, I think is a way in which we can help those businesses as well.
So do you think people are going to want to come to COVID Central with the highest number of managed isolation and quarantine facilities and the biggest cluster?
Not if you put it that way, Lisa. You would not be one of our hospitality ambassadors for the city. But
that's
look,
what you're up against, isn't it?
No, of course that's right. But given the figures that we're getting with the limited number of community transmission, now we want to leave it just a little bit longer, which goes back to why we're not yet ready, in my view, for level 1. We want to find whether going back to level 2 with some transmission still in the community, which we never had last time we went back to level 2, we want to make sure that doesn't suddenly result in a kick-up in numbers of community transmission. But I'm confident that if we do it right, and when I say we, I mean every one of us, because we all have that responsibility to play our part in taking the safeguards necessary, then we will get back to a position where we eliminate the community transmission, and then we can get back to the sort of recovery that we're actually enjoying last time under level 1. And I've seen the graphs and I've seen the figures, and we were picking up quite markedly in terms of the business activity right around the city. And, the heart of the city will tell you this in Auckland, that when we've got back to level 1, things were coming back quite rapidly. And the best way to get them back, of course, is to kill the disease, to eliminate the transmission in the community. And that's the way we can best help our own businesses.
Just in respect to the weekend, are all the council sports fields going to stay closed? Obviously, there's a maximum 10 of 10 people allowed in one space at the same time, so that rules out your rugby and soccer teams, etc. So, are all those facilities going to be closed?
Yeah. Look, we've opened a lot of our facilities, in particular the libraries and the zoo and Motat and the museum and the art gallery and things like that. But we are still bound under 2.5 to have that maximum number of people congregating together at 10. And the reason for that's pretty obvious to everybody. If you look at where that transmission really started to take off, it was at gatherings such as churches, and it could easily have been at a rugby club or something like that. So the restrictions stay in place until we come out of that level 2 plus that we are under at the moment. And obviously we want to come out of that, but we also want to get back to level 1 because for the 102 days that we enjoyed that, whereas most of the rest of the world was under some form of restriction, we really did enjoy it, and that was great for us individually as human beings and the freedoms that we enjoyed. It was good because we all felt safe, and it was good for business. And, finding the most effective way of getting back to level 1, which means not compromising our ability to eliminate the spread of the virus in the community is the best way in everybody's interests, actually.
But people have got COVID fatigue. I mean, if you went down to Western Springs on the weekend and looked at the soccer fields there, people are playing there in groups of more than 10. If you go down to Mission Bay, they're doing it as well. So there need to be a bit more enforcement here because, well, people just simply are not playing by the rules.
Yeah, look, the vast majority of people are. When we say, you're quite right, I can go down to Mission Bay and I can say, oh, those people aren't, they're not in the same bubble and they're not 2 metres apart. Yeah, you can find people that aren't observing it in the way that we want them to observe it. But for the vast majority of Aucklanders, I'm going to give a big call out. As I've gone around the city, I've seen people really working hard at making sure that they observe those restrictions. And I've got to say, I never imagined that I would see the number of people that I'm seeing around Auckland wearing a mask when out in public that I'm seeing now. That's something, once upon a time I saw in Korea or Japan. Could you imagine a New Zealander wearing a mask? And while it actually wasn't part of our culture, that culture is changing. I see people on a daily basis using their COVID-19 app, and I'm doing that myself, and got it on Google Maps as well. So look, here's a big call out to the vast majority of people who are playing their role. And the second call is to those people that aren't. Please just remember, this isn't just about you. It's about if you became a transmitter of the virus, what does that mean if you're a young person in particular, for your parents, your grandparents? We've all got a role to play. Let's play it. Let's eliminate the virus from community transmission, and then we can get back to what all of us want.